gentlemen, Brother Hugh, favorite faction of all time.
Golly, man, that's hard.
Yeah, yep. This is where we're going to start, because this is where we're going to measure. This is where we're going to measure what's good, what's bad, what's ugly. What did they do right? What didn't they do right? And how can we get to today? Brian H is grabbing the belt. What's
it on? Well, I guess if I was to look at it as if I was watching it, like
you're on a hot seat. What's your favorite faction of all time?
He said he ain't trying to hear all that. Just tell him his favorite faction.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going DX overall.
Why? Okay. What about DX makes that your favorite faction of all time?
I'm just thinking about, for me, it's about the memories. It's the people that was there. I loved every one of those people that was in that faction, including Rick Rude when it started. Yeah, it would have to be DX. They all played a pivotal piece in history. They could all hold their own. Like, they meshed well. Like I said, it was just chemistry. The chemistry was impeccable. They just looked like they was out there having fun. They looked like a bunch of old geezers, like you said, just having fun.
There you go. Brian H, favorite faction of all time.
Absolution.
No, I said your favorite. I said your favorite faction of all time.
You know, I'm always torn. Shout out to Brother Brandon for these gifts. Between these two.
I think that's like tough. The pecking order.
Right? Mm-hmm. Like to me, they are the standards. Like, and no, I wasn't around for the Four Horsemen, but but it all comes down to the side plate that I have, and that's the NWO.
Now, why is that? Because I don't remember you being a big WCW guy at that time.
Why you think it is, man?
Well, let's be fair. Let's be fair. Like,
I'm just saying.
I just want to be fair. Like,
nah, bro. Are you trying to hear this?
He might have a different reason. I don't know.
Well. Truth be told, it's the first time that I rooted for heels.
Oh yeah, babyface Brian.
When the next day I found out Hulk Hogan had turned heel. It was like, all right, this is what we doing.
This is what brother you didn't want to hear.
Right.
Exactly. Hater. And then the next year, Brett would turn heel and was like, all right, I'm rolling with him. Or a year later. But the NWO was cool. Mm-hmm. The t-shirts. Even like, to me, all right, y'all know how I feel about WrestleMania 9, right? No matter what you say about it, you're not going to convince me it was bad, right?
You don't have to convince you. The world's convinced you. Nobody talks about WrestleMania now, but you and like three other people.
It don't matter.
It does matter. It stinks.
It does matter, yes. Yeah.
Y'all know how I feel about that, right?
Okay.
I feel the same way about the NWO Wolfpack.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much people could say it was the downfall or whatever, it was so cool.
I didn't know it was bad until I was grown.
Bingo. When I look back at it, it was still cool. Playing the video games, changing on WCW Thunder. You could change the factions if y'all remember.
That was cool. I ain't gonna lie.
And I would
Thunder was that game.
Oh, trust me. Oh, I knew that was.
Thunder was that game for me, right?
Yeah. So I would change. Like, I would put Bret Hart in the Wolfpack. Then I might take somebody like, from WCW and put them in a Wolfpack like DDP, and they would change the clothes, which when you think about it, that was pretty advanced at that time. So to me, the Wolfpack always gets the slight edge over DX.
Okay.
Because if anybody say which faction will be us, to me it's more, we're gonna be more of an NWO. Like, say what you want.
No, we're not.
What do you mean? You
talking like the original NWO, like the three guys, not the group?
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that because the only reason I say it is because there was an evolution of what the NWO was, kind of like how DX was, right?
Yeah.
Like DX and Triple H was a different version of DX than it was with the rest of the gang with the New Age Outlaws and X-Pac.
Right.
The NWO was kind of the same way. Like, when it started, it was a very violent group. Like, and then it became like kind of cool, but it became kind of like, when it was the coolest, I don't know. It's just difficult. It's just they got outsmarted by Sting every week somehow. Like it was one guy against like 30 of them.
Well, I think back like more is like I said, Brother Hugh Scott Hall, he just too cool, too smooth.
He's definitely the coolest one. He's definitely.
But he
Scott
can
Hall.
main event at any given moment. You,
And
Kevin Nash, you don't give a goddamn.
I don't. Pay me. Let's go home. Long
And I'm
contracts are right, brother.
I'm Hogan.
Yeah, we know that.
Right.
Always looking for another run.
Right.
Always looking for another run.
God.
Just can't hang it up.
Never. But yeah, but like the NWO. So for me, it was always like it just like I said, the t-shirts, the fonts. I do get tired of seeing everybody with NWO fonts on their podcast. Like every new podcast comes out with an NWO font, like every 3 months or whatever. But in general, it's cool that they have their font. Like
that's the impact. That's the impact that they
and to be honest with you, there was never a point in time where I hated any of those guys. There was a point in time where I hated Shawn Michaels, when I hated Triple H. I
was never capable of hating Shawn Michaels. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah, I feel you.
For obvious reasons.
And then like I rooted against DX when The Rock was in 2000. Even though I was happy that they was back together because they were supposed to be, but I rooted against it.
Yeah, I feel you. No, I think two of the things that I've garnered the most from you brothers is that these factions are iconic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're iconic in more than one race, because if you look at it, it seems
no Taquan, and I don't.
Uh-oh.
What he said?
He went there. You know where he went. With just Hogan.
Oh yeah, you know how that works.
Hulk Hogan follows the Wrestling Wrealm on Twitter. That's my biggest flex.
So like factions define a generation. There's always one that kind of like this generation this is what that. So like for instance, we're one generation, but if you ask anybody in the 80s what faction was most important, you're going to hear about the Four Horsemen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Four
coming
Horsemen,
off of the Freebirds,
of course, because like the Freebirds
and
were
Von Erichs.
Freebirds and Von Erichs were kind of southern, right?
Yeah.
And then you had like they were kind of like they represented one demographic of professional wrestling fans, right? And then you had the Four Horsemen that were kind of clean cut, money guys, traveling, jet setting kind of group, and they were all villains. And the Four Horsemen were iconic because they may not have had like an iconic t-shirt, but they had an iconic style that we still parody to this day, that kids come up and want to be like Ric Flair. That whole Ric Flair drip thing started with him. It started with the Horsemen. That was their lifestyle. That was their attitude. And then they would get in the ring and beat the living tar out of you, right? So you look at the NWO, you look at DX, the t-shirts, the catchphrases, the moments, the ratings, the money. You had the same thing with the Four Horsemen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you move into like the 2000s, and then on forward, you had factions like Evolution. You know what I mean? You had factions like the Hart Foundation, which were like very like that. The Hart Foundation was the very first Team Canada, technically. There's been two versions of Team Canada. There's been Team Canada and WCW that with like Lance Storm and Elix Skipper, and at one point they turned coat Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Then there was Team Canada in TNA with Scott D'Amore and Eric Young and A1 and Bobby Roode.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
And Petey Williams, the king of the Canadian Destroyer.
Didn't they have one in no, that was the Un-Americans.
And the Un-Americans
invasion.
Yeah, pretty much. It was with Edge and Christian, I believe. I think
Test was in there, wasn't he?
Test and Regal.
Storm.
And Lance Storm.
And
he had that group. You know what I mean? So I think a good faction defines a generation. It kind of sets the tone for like, okay, this faction was a key part of what made this branch or this time period of wrestling successful. So that's kind of the way we measure factions these days. But there were a lot of good factions and there were a lot of bad factions, right? There were a lot of things that went well, a lot of factions that didn't really stick. So let's talk about a faction that kind of we enjoyed, but like for instance, the Ministry of Darkness and the Corporation.
Yes, sir.
Right. These were very different factions during the time because they were so large. There wasn't just like a group of guys. It wasn't DX was 4 or 5 guys. Including China, versus the Corporation was huge, and then eventually they merged to become the Corporate Ministry, right? when you talk about certain time periods when it comes to the Attitude Era, we talk about the corporate. You can't go but so far without coming into the corporation, the ministry, or the corporate ministry, and of course, the famous scene with the higher power, with Vince McMahon kind of organizing strings behind closed doors.
So
Right?
good, so good.
It was me, Austin. It was me all along. Which is I said, but let's talk about some of your favorite factions of the early 2000s. Right. So let's talk about the most controversial. I mean, not the most controversial, but the one that we talk about, the most obvious faction that was kind of like that Dylan kind of just brought up. Evolution.
Mhm.
We talking Triple H, we're talking Batista, we're talking Ric Flair, we're talking Randy Orton, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now, I wasn't a big Evolution fan. When you look at it, it makes perfect sense.
It does.
You know what I mean? Like when you hear it, but that was a funny time for me personally during that era when it comes to watching wrestling. I was just getting back into watching it full time, and it sucked me back in, and and I was like, I didn't like naked face Triple H being champion. I never liked Batista. I loved Randy Orton. I love Ric Flair.
That was a Triple H with the colorful undies.
Yeah, he was wearing different color tights instead of one sticking to his own look. But since you brought it,
that
Hugh,
blowout.
yeah, that fair hair, as they call it back in the 70s. But Brother Hugh,
Yes,
talk about the impact of what Evolution did, and in regards to the same standards in which we're talking about factions in general today, right? We talk about them being iconic, we're talking about them stars, and we're also talking about them launching the careers of the guys that were in it. And Evolution kind of checks all those boxes. You don't talk about wrestling factions at all without mentioning Evolution. Why is that? What did Evolution mean to the history of professional wrestling, and especially specifically in WWE?
It's for the exact reasons that you just stated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially they helped build the careers of two legends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the time, Triple H was the man. Ric Flair was the old school guy. He was the man at his time. Now you have these two young cats that's coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and they're there to groom them and put
Mhm.
them in place, and put them where they need to be to make certain moves to take their careers to another level. Thus, Evolution. It to me, when I first saw it, I immediately thought Four Horsemen.
Mm-hmm. Evolution of Four Horsemen. Yep.
Yeah, yep. That's exactly what I thought, and basically, I mean, that was their whole spiel. That was the whole purpose of that group, was to evolve the people that was there, keep them relevant. Batista became a star.
Yeah.
Couldn't stand him,
Never liked
but
Batista,
a star.
but he was definitely a huge star.
Right, Randy Orton. He was like the prodigy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
You know, at the time. So, like, yeah, that was the purpose of Evolution.
Evolution was one of those factions that I think it was. I don't want to say it was sorely needed, but it was a breath of fresh air, because you kind of notice the trend of what Triple H is kind of doing now. Is he's like, okay, cool, yeah, you could always use factions to kind of elevate and move the needle forward for a lot of the young talent and young superstars. You can introduce them; they can be your heaters, they can be the guy that takes your bumps. But you can put them in the best situation if they're paired with the right people to kind of elevate their careers, and then go on to either create faction of their own, or just become, you know, major players and Hall of Fame guys. And even then, like you see Triple H already with his mind moving when it comes to his approach to developmental.
I was about to say it became like a mini version of a foreshadowing of NXT.
I mean, you understand the importance of building new talent, and like I said, and you're talking about two guys that Triple H went on to have.
Oh no, you're muted.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, let me just make sure my audio is still where it needs to be.
Yeah, you on the computer.
Testing. Nope. There we go. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
There we go. So the important thing is, it's like this. It checks the right boxes for what a good faction is, and we're gonna keep that same energy as we move on today, because there's another faction that we were privy to that reminds me a lot of Evolution that I like a lot, and that was the Hurt Business. But before we get into the Hurt Business, elimination time. You guys had noticed, but we're doing this today. This is like an impromptu Survivor Series matchup. NWO versus DX, and then we're going to do the Four Horsemen versus Evolution. So in the first matchup, you got Four Horsemen and you got the Generation X. Brian H., who you taking?
NWO versus DX. I'm going with NWO.
See, he tried to cop out. I said,
Right. He said,
Wait,
Four
hold
Horsemen.
I said
My bad,
Evolution.
Oh.
I said Evolution versus DX.
Oh, Evolution. I mean DX. Easy.
Okay. About you, Brother Hugh.
DX.
Who you taking? Okay, you taking DX. All right. So now you got the Four Horsemen versus the NWO.
Who's in it for the NWO though?
We'll just start with the original three.
Just the three.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, you can't lose with them.
So what are you saying?
NWO.
So you're saying the NWO had a bigger impact, better careers, better everything than the Four Horsemen? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's hard because yeah.
No, I'm gonna tell you why.
Nah, it's tough though because it's generational. Like
Okay.
the Four Horsemen span was like at least a couple of decades, man. Like, and it still had impact going into the 2000s with Evolution, a major impact as far as factions.
Okay. So what are you saying, brother?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because you're twiddling and
But
doodling.
at the end of the day, cross appeal, you think about all the marketing, you think about all of that, you gotta go NWO.
Okay. Brian H., you say the same thing?
Easily, because the one simple fact is Scott Hall or Kevin Nash was never looked at as a sidekick. Arn Anderson will even say out of his mouth he was the greatest sidekick ever. What I see with the Four Horsemen versus NWO, it's kind of like the San Antonio Spurs going up against the Lakers.
Okay.
You know, you got a team full of stars versus one star and a bunch of like good role players.
Got it.
What you trying to say though?
I mean, he got real specific about some things.
One's a
Right,
workhorse, one's a workhorse, and one's flashy.
Okay.
So
But
I'm
the
still
flashy
trying to
team
figure
can
out.
win and get it done. And what you say, marketable. Which one's going to sell more tickets?
Nah,
Interesting
that's true.
take.
That's true.
So you're going with the NWO over the Four Horsemen, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, it's down to the NWO versus DX because this is going to segue into the next faction that we're going to talk about. I was trying not to match them up at first because I had a feeling this was going to happen. So we're talking about NWO, we're talking about defects, we're talking about the greatest factions, stables, we're talking money, we're talking crossover appeal, we're talking everything. NWO versus DX. Mind you, we just celebrated 25 years of DX. Brian H., starting with you, buddy.
This was tough.
You're lucky we don't have no like Survivor Series graphics. If we had sound effects and stuff, this would be way more entertaining. But y'all just have to hear us talk about it.
I want to look at the numbers. Yeah,
Nope, see, that's it.
I look at the numbers.
Now he wants to get into the specifics.
No, because to me, it can go either way.
And I'm glad you say that because I'm gonna tell you this is. Let me let the people know this is what you're up against because you have the longevity of DX. We just celebrated 25th anniversary, which is something special, right?
Yeah.
But you also have the longevity of the NWO because they're still selling an NWO t-shirt is still one of the most hottest selling t-shirts.
Absolutely.
And that came out in 1996. The Rock House NWO theme is still one of the most downloaded songs, right? And the impact of the NWO still kind of reigns supreme, you know, through a lot of different avenues and stuff like that. So you're seeing the influence of both still. Right now, one might have lasted longer than the other one, but one had a drastic impact in a smaller period of time. So now you got it. Like this is where the scales are. The scales are here. You have to make a decision as someone with superior wrestling intellect, Brian H. Waters.
See, and then I think in this situation, nah, that's not fair. I was gonna say you go with the one that won the war, but that was beyond their control.
But then think about it. You have to take consideration once again. The DX came back. NWO came back, but DX's comeback was way more successful than NWO's comeback because NWO came back twice and DX came back twice. NWO came back one time in WWE and it came back as the band in TNA. which is
DX.
Wow. Okay.
I know. See, off of that, yeah.
Right.
But it's like
We're still doing this to this day.
That's the thing.
that's what I'm saying. Overall, that NWO, like you can't lose with that, man. That, like you said, I'm trying not to look at it from a business perspecslove, but it's
like
hard
debating
for me.
Rock and Austin.
So it's like,
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like
Except it's not Krista B and Queen PR because that's a slug fight.
Right.
I feel like I'm still seeing more NWO product, more NWO influence.
You are
in the media as opposed to DX, and then you also got to remember that DX was prominent in the Attitude Era. Like when people mention DX, they don't think 9 times out of 10. I feel like people don't think Shawn Michaels and Triple H. They think those four.
I mean,
crotch chopping.
There is an era
of craziness.
There's an era of kids that grew up on just Triple H and Shawn Michaels in 2006.
Right, but they were still very raunchy. But then you also have to remember too, WWE had to switch up the game, and they had to water down their product. So it's like that could have affected too.
Okay, listen, and not to mention we got to think about WrestleMania with Sting and Triple H. We had an iconic moment with
see, but that right there was just to let you know, like, look, we won the battle.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
So are you saying DX over NWO right now? Brian, make sure you're ready to clip this up. Are you saying this, Brother Hugh? DX over NWO. Brian has already said in a matchup between, as far as the greatest factions of all time, in this impromptu Survivor Series matchup, he said he's taking DX over NWO. They nearly edged it. Are you going on record right now at this moment in time and saying the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just for longevity reasons.
All right.
Because NWO was the other versions of it was whack.
And that's the difference.
That's what did it.
And that's the difference. The other versions of the NWO were not successful like DX.
Yeah.
DX was not what it was, but it was still successful.
But and that's the thing. But like you said, 2006, didn't that last like a couple years though?
It did off and on. Like they started and they went back to it. It was never like an official breakup, but Triple H got injured. Remember?
Yeah,
and that's when Shawn Michaels went on to main event with John Cena, and then when he came back, they had another DX run,
and it was moving merch. Even though I'm not a fan of that DX logo,
it's not like it wasn't successful. Sure. Because it's got the green DX logo.
Yeah, that's not for me. But okay like you said, there's a generation.
Numbers,
yeah. Right.
They were successful. It wasn't the same as what we grew up on, but it's not like they weren't successful. The band wasn't successful.
They adapted. They adapted to the PG era.
Yeah, and I'm sure that wasn't easy to do. So I knew that was. Go ahead.
I'm gonna tell you why it was. Because Shawn Michaels changed his life.
Of course. At this point, I heard that on your show. B. Brian H. Walters.
Right.
But like us older fans probably would appreciate it. But like one by him changing his life, he was still able to have fun. But so it was a lot of factors that went into that. But and like I said, I'm an NWO guy slightly, but you can't argue with the facts. And because DX, at the end of the day, when you have a DX reunion, the most people you bringing out is 6 people.
Sure.
Not 3,000.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That's what if the NWO would have stayed, Hogan Hall, Nash,
and then the other factions that they influenced.
Hey man, don't
BWO.
Yeah. Like that's true. They gave birth to other factions.
Wolfpack.
Yeah, I remember when Hugh came to school, like, yo, you heard about the LWO? I'm like, what?
LWO was that joint.
And he was running around blasting the music.
That joint rock, man.
You see, Legado del Fantasma has LWF shirts, like LDF shirts.
Yeah.
That's tough. LWO. There it is.
It is.
Why does Brandon have this on deck like this though?
Right.
Like why?
Hey, Spotify, baby. Hurry up, get to it. Boom, boom, boom.
Ladies and gentlemen, vibe out with us to this Eddie Guerrero theme music. We salute you, Eddie, and LWO.
And see, I didn't even know it was Eddie Guerrero's theme. He was like, yo, it's just Eddie Guerrero's theme music because I didn't have cable. So if Eddie wasn't on Worldwide, I didn't see him.
Oh, you gotta wait till the horns come in.
Everybody play.
That's the best part, man. That's the best part.
It's nothing like
music. He used to come out bopping too like this.
I said this giving George Lopez flashback.
It sounds like the theme for Angry Beavers, that cartoon on Nickelodeon.
Oh snap! Angry Beavers. That was my. Oh my gosh, I love that show.
That was my favorite Sunday afternoon random cartoon.
Right.
But you know, this is a classic, right?
Dag and Norby. I got tired of hearing that one for personal reasons.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
what?
He probably kept bumping that joint.
Because I went to I went to cover a game for the Baltimore Nighthawks in Jersey,
And
and of course, New York is the team. Their team is the Wolves. So that's all they made a version of the Wolfpack song, and that's all they played the whole time. And I'm like, bro, I don't want to hear this no more, man.
Wow.
I've been rocking out.
Nah, I'd have been bumping. That's
I was at first, like the first 2 times, like the first couple times you hear it, and then it's like,
brother, you said it's too much.
Is it because they kept scoring on y'all?
That too,
Yeah.
and it was cold outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a lot going on. But let's talk about another faction. Let's talk about a faction that kind of gave birth. That kind of came from DX and NWO was the Bullet Club. Now this is a faction that kind of originated in New Japan Pro Wrestling, started by Prince Devitt, Fergal Devitt, also known as Finn Balor. I believe Bad Luck Fale, Tama Tonga, the Young Bucks, and yeah, I think that was the original group. I know I didn't. I'll say this: the NWO got me to come back to wrestling, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I stopped watching NWO was because DX was on TV.
There it is.
That was the only reason I didn't like WWF, because it was Tesla. It looked like, WCW was really high production. It looked like it was clear, it was live. You would turn to WWF, and I'd be like, bro, turn this fake wrestling off. It's not even recorded on live. But I was like, wait a minute, who are those guys? My bro's like, that's DX. Man, who's DX? Like, I don't know who these DX guys are, but these guys are cool.
Yeah.
They just be like, I was like, who's DX? They like DX. I'm like, no, you said DX. They're like, no, DX. I'm like, who's DX? Well, yeah, they were the only.
Yo, the better music.
This,
because my man Jim Johnson. Well, you know what I mean?
That's tough. Rock House is like iconic, and DX is cool, but like, I think I listen to Rock House more than I listen to DX's name.
Okay.
Slightly NWO,
because DX theme starts off so slow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
but it's the reason why.
It's the build up,
But see, then I got to be honest, because
if I'm trying to, you're right.
This is what.
No, baby.
It's the theme is the it's influence on my show. Break it down.
You get the hype. You get hyped up.
Yeah, I'm definitely Run DMC.
Break it down. You just
the Run DMC joint was tough though. The Run DMC.
Yeah, it was.
Was that on Aggression?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All the rap versions of the theme song. That was tough. Like that one still is as what you call it. Oh, like I said, we still burn the midnight oil. Look at Rogers in the building now.
Oh boy.
But yeah, man. The Bullet Club. Why do you brothers think that the Bullet Club was so successful?
That part right there, real quick. We'll get the Bullet Club, but
you see how it starts though? Like it comes off all breaks. Like, oh, you got me in.
Hey.
Yo, that's giving me 2000 all over again. That's like one of my favorite years in life.
Look at the way he's going on.
Bro, that's my jam, bro. I still rock. That joint is tough. Run DMC,
bro.
Oh my god!
I'm about to bring up something Brother Hugh pointed out to me when it first happened. WrestleMania 2000.
Hey, go ahead.
Watch this six-man tag. Where X-Pac.
Hey, son, I was just. Hey, you read my mind. You read my mind. I was about to say something, but then I was watched like, leave it alone.
And I was like, okay, cool. But then he was like, yo, did you see X-Pac slip?
He came out so hyped that he just like almost he must have hit a patch of water or something.
He almost had a Mandy Rose at WrestleMania 37.
Uh-oh. That would have been disastrous. I'd have laughed at him.
But yeah, because they was coming out to that music. That whole WrestleMania, they was doing like was it Ice-T and the Godfather?
Yeah.
They was trying to sell that album heavy. Big Show had, I think, a theme if he was on that one. But yeah, man.
Kane's music was tough too. By
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who did his? Who was it? Don't tell me, yo. It was was it Mac 10? Did Mac 10 do his?
It might have been. I can't remember.
Stone Pile Driver on the mind. I was like, oh
Yeah.
snap, but that's just tough, bro.
Bars.
Yeah, but
The East Siders.
East Side, that's who it was. Yeah.
That right.
It's your guy. It's you.
That's when you get the ugly face on it. Just,
Bro, that aggressive album is probably one of my favorite albums out of like better than the original joints.
This show wasn't born for the weak.